Today, Nally Elementary would like to recognize all of our October Leaders of the Month. We are so proud of these students for their outstanding leadership in the classroom, on the playground, in the lunchroom, and always displaying the 7 habits here at Nally School. Today, I will recognize each student in each grade and tell you a little something about them. Our first Leaders of the Month are in kindergarten. Madison, MAZAK, and Mrs. Craig's room. Madison is being recognized for being proactive. Mrs. Craig said Madison comes smiling every day to school. She brightens our room with her positive mindset and hard work ethic. Keep up the great work, Maddie. Also in Mrs. Craig's room, we have James WIGHTMAN. James is being recognized for being proactive. Mrs. Craig said James has been working quite hard to adjust to kindergarten and being a leader. I am so proud of how he has settled into our classroom and has been a great role model. He has a wonderful mindset now. Way to go, James. Up next is students from Mrs. Guerreri's class. We have Madelyn Dvorak. Madelyn puts first things first. Madelyn is an outstanding leader in the kindergarten classroom. She always puts first things first every day. Way to go, Madelyn. Also in Mrs. Guerreri's room, we have Paxton Elder. Paxton synergizes. Paxton is a quiet leader in our classroom. He is always looking for ways to work together with the students in our room. Keep it up, Paxton. Next up in Mrs. Gabo's room, we have Charlie Pariso. Charlie puts first things first. Miss Gabo said Charlie gets started on his work right away and always tries his best. Way to go, Charlie. Also, we have Brinn Porter from Mrs. Gabo's class. Brinn is proactive. Miss Gabo said Brinn always follows directions the first time they are given. Way to go. Up next are the students in Mrs. Parton's room. We have ANDIE Moore. ANDIE synergizes. Mrs. Parton said ANDIE is always thinking of others before herself. She wants to help and encourages others to do their best. She is always spreading kindness to our whole class. Also, we have Maddox Miller in Mrs. Parton's room. Maddox is proactive. Maddox always does his best. He works hard and pushes himself to be better. His peers look up to him because of this, but also because of his kind heart. Way to go, Maddox. In Mrs. Zukowski's class, our first student is Avery Walmer. Avery is proactive. Avery is a kind and helpful child. She is a true leader in kindergarten. Keep up the great work, Avery. Also, Mrs. Zukowski nominated Josh Backer. Josh leads by example. His work quality is top-notch, his choices are kind, and he is someone his friends and teachers can count on. Way to go, Josh. Okay, moving on to first grade. Our first student is in Mrs. Bowser's class, and it is Gentry England. Mrs. Bowser said Gentry noticed that another student needed help packing up their book bag and said she wanted to help so her classmate could make it to the bus on time. Thank you for being so thoughtful, Gentry. Also in Mrs. Bowser's room, we have Ben Largent. Ben synergizes. Mrs. Bowser said Ben helped one of his classmates complete their work. Ben was kind, patient, and caring. Also, another first grader we have is in Mrs. Carmichael's room, and that is Terryn Swain. Terryn is proactive. Mrs. Carmichael said Terryn is always prepared for class and puts forth his best effort. As Terryn left class today, he said, "Thank you for having us here to learn." Thank you so much, Terryn. Also in Mrs. Carmichael's room, we have Adeline Dusky. Adeline is proactive. Adeline is a quiet leader and always does her best. She is working hard on moving up her clip every day. In Mrs. Fiesler's room, we have Finn Huggins. Finn thinks win-win. Mrs. Fiesler said Finn is always finding thoughtful ways to help others and think win-win. We also have SHAELEE Young in Mrs. Fiesler's room. SHAELEE thinks win-win. SHAELEE always welcomes others to play with her at recess and greets them with a kind smile. In Mrs. Rector's room, we have Lane Johnson. Lane is proactive. Mrs. Rector said Lane is such a hard worker and a great friend to his classmates. Way to go, Lane. Also in Mrs. Rector's room, we have ARIA BERCKART. ARIA demonstrates all the 7 habits. Mrs. Rector said ARIA is a model student in room 105. She said, "I can count on ARIA to always do her best. I am so proud of you, ARIA." Okay, moving on to our second graders. Our first student is in Mrs. Grandin's room, and it is Grace Johnson. Grace is being recognized for being proactive. Mrs. Grandin said Grace Johnson is so proactive with her choices at the end of the day. She is constantly looking out for others by putting up chairs and cleaning up the room without ever being asked. Also in Mrs. Grandin's room, we have Ellie Freeman, who puts first things first. Mrs. Grandin said Ellie is always putting first things first. She said, I'm constantly seeing Ellie on task, working quietly, and doing what needs to be done without any reminders. Thank you, Ellie. We also have second graders from Mrs. Rankin's room. Our first one is Jade Nall. Jade thinks win-win. Mrs. Rankin said Jade is a kind and caring girl. She has a heart of gold. We are happy to have her as a part of our second grade classroom. Also in Mrs. Rankin's room, we have Jada Green. Jada synergizes. Mrs. Rankin said Jada is a friendly student to all. She is always willing to work or play with others that need a partner. She is a wonderful addition to our second grade classroom. Okay, moving on to Mrs. Van Dorsten's room, we have Cassius Kuzma. Cassius puts first things first. Mrs. Van Dorsten said Cassius is a very hard worker and always does his best. He always helps others. Also in Mrs. Van Dorsten's room, we have Bailee Kiefer. Bailee is proactive. Mrs. Van Dorsten said Bailee is a hard worker and is always friendly with her classmates. She is always a good helper, too. Thank you, Bailee. In Mrs. Slimak's room, we have Sophia Pfahler. Sophia puts first things first. Mrs. Slimak said Sophia does a wonderful job of focusing on getting her work done each day and staying organized. We also have Grayson Porco. Grayson synergizes. Mrs. Slimak said Grayson is working hard in second grade and can often be seen synergizing with his classmates to get work done. Way to go, second graders. All right, moving on to third graders. Our first student is in Mrs. Braley's room, and it is Peyton Smith. Peyton is being recognized for putting first things first and being proactive. Mrs. Braley said Peyton is always ready with materials for lessons, taking charge of her own learning, and participating in class discussions. Mrs. Braley said, I am so proud of Peyton's accomplishments this far in third grade. Also in Mrs. Braley's room, we have Novak Zuza, who is proactive. Mrs. Braley said, I appreciate Novak's desire to learn in all of our lessons. He is a fantastic leader. In Mrs. Esterly's room, we have Emily Lyons. Emily synergizes. Mrs. Esterly said Emily is a rock star when it comes to helping other kids. Thank you, Emily. We also have Brody Bennett in Mrs. Esterly's room, who synergizes. Mrs. Esterly said Brody is a standout student who gets along with everyone and can be trusted by teachers and peers. In Mrs. Stasnis's room, we have Lily Kiefer, who puts first things first. Mrs. Stasnis said Lily is new to Nolly, and we are so glad to have her here. She is a hard worker and always has a smile on her face, even when she has to work a little harder. She is always willing and has a wonderful growth mindset. Good job, Lily. Also, there is J.D. Widmer. J.D. is proactive and seeks first to understand. J.D. is an amazing student. He is curious, asks questions to make sure he is doing the right thing, and he is always prepared and on track. And let's not forget his beautiful cursive handwriting. Way to go, JD. Keep it up. In Mr. Straub's room, we have Avery Evans. Avery puts first things first. Mr. Straub said Avery is a very hard worker, and she digs right into it to get the job done. Way to go, Avery. Also, we have Ace Smith, who puts first things first. Mr. Straub said Ace does such a great job of getting right to work and getting the job done. Way to go, third graders. All right, we are going to go on to our fourth grade leaders of the month. Our first student is in Mrs. Gardner and Miss Barron's class, and that is Ashton Zimmer. Ashton seeks first to understand. Ashton is a quiet leader in room 120. His teachers say we can always count on him to work hard and help others. Also in fourth grade with Mrs. Gardner and Mrs. Barron's is Riley Heaton. Riley puts first things first. Riley is working so hard in fourth grade. She always makes sure she has all of her work done and turns everything in on time. And I also heard she's doing amazing with her math time test. Great job, Riley. In Mrs. Matson's room, we have Chase Rogas. Chase puts first things first. Chase is a top-notch student who always gets his work done, and he always does it very well. Also in Mrs. Matson's room, we have Sydney Murphy, who is proactive. Sydney comes to school with a smile and a positive attitude, ready to learn each and every day. Thank you, Sydney. In Mrs. Oaks' room, we have Cassidy Solomon, who puts first things first. Mrs. Oaks said Cassidy works hard to get organized and complete her work before her bus helper job, and she never needs a reminder. She is a great role model for her classmates. Also in Mrs. Oaks' room, we have Jameson Coughlin. Jameson takes responsibility for himself and his actions, even though it may mean a negative consequence. I appreciate his maturity. He is working hard in 4th grade. Great job, Jameson. And also in 4th grade, we have Macy Bickett, who is in Mrs. Toth's room. Macy is proactive. Macy is always ready and waiting to start each day, including her attendance job. Good job, Macy. Also in Mrs. Toth's room, we have Bryce Kuzmits. Bryce is being recognized for putting first things first. Bryce takes his lunch count job very seriously, handling it with precision and accuracy each day. Way to go, 4th graders. Congratulations to all of our NOLI Leaders of the Month. The entire staff here at NOLI is so proud of you. Keep up the great work and outstanding leadership.